Hey there, folks. Hope you had a good break. We are back with our community spotlight on Small Loan Studios. With us, we have one of the technical narrative designers from there, Andrea Saravia Perez. If you'd like to give an introduction to yourself, that would be awesome.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name's Andrea, and I basically try to do all things narrative. I've been doing this for a couple of years in games such as Civilization 7, most recently, a couple of projects under NDA, and I just thought that I could bring some of like the production processes that I was familiar with, and then with the assistance of people from like other industries, elevate them so that we could just be able to like make ambitious games as a group. And I thought I could share like a presentation with everybody, just kind of like showing what Small Loan Studio is, how we even came to be and stuff. So yeah, let me share my screen. Yeah, let me see if I can just kind of. All right. Is it visible, Anuj, by the way? Everything all
It
good?
looks great. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll also take a look at the stream as well, but everything looks good on our end.
Thank you. Yeah, so I co-founded Small Loan Studio with a couple of people from the narrative department as well. And so, despite the name, we are an accelerator by developers for developers. And I'll go and break down a little bit what I mean by an accelerator. But essentially, we collaborate with a large team ranging from 20 to 40 people, depending on the project, and we sort of like bring processes from different companies because we have a lot of collaborators. And then by just being able to like experience making a game and the pipeline and being able to just know the scale at which dependencies like influence one another is how we can kind of like, teach developers how to be able to like operate in a studio by accelerating their experience, if that makes sense. An example of like an accelerator would be like think a platform like Itsola. I'm not partnership with them, by the way, just kind of like putting it as an example. And they support ventures. So it can be a startup, it can be a game studio, but like a rough there's not really like a set definition for like an accelerator in games. They just exist like like the Itsola one. But it's mainly through support, introductions, guidance, and mentorship. Um, and I'll break down a little bit what I mean by that. So with support, it's kind of like self-explanatory. We assist just kind of like with having a network that spans different countries. We have developers in Australia, Singapore, United Kingdom, across all the time zones in the United States. We've even had collaborators in Turkey, Colombia. So it really is kind of like a worldwide and global team in every sense of the word. Um, and by having like these different perspectives and just kind of like this network, then if somebody, when we were traveling to GDC, we were able to meet up, and then already that's a huge advantage, just kind of like in networking. We also are able to curate a lot of resources that we provide to like our different team members, and these resources are very much like discipline specific. So resources to assist with narrative design, sound design, marketing, art, production, programming, all the nine yards really is how we are able to like just by sharing them and not gatekeeping any knowledge is how we have like our developers grow and also exposing them through experience as well. In addition to this, like I will be honest, for example, like though my I have worked for a couple of studios. Most of my experience is in emergent narratives, not linear narratives. So already, like I'm very much a person that's aware of needing, somebody that could help me with like linear narratives. Because we have again like this network, we're able to like have partnerships and establish workshops with subject matter experts on any subjects that we may feel like our team is could just improve upon, by just having like these subject matter experts with firsthand accounts of like different subjects that sometimes are like very niche. Um, and we're able to just kind of like bring them onto our server, allow them to like give a talk, and then just kind of like encourage our developers to take notes, ask questions, so that it feels more like a conversation, and a workshop where you're actually just kind of like having something done rather than just like you listening and like that's it. Um, Another thing that we do is that we have collaborative, like the projects that I was mentioning. Thank you. And so with the projects, basically what we do is that we will have again like the team of like 20 to 40 developers. Usually, we're following, like a couple of prompts. We would pitch ideas and then vote about them as a group. And then have pipelines that cater to like each developer. And again, we're supporting them throughout like, the development of it rather than just like, hey, here's an idea, go make it. Because with game jams or like projects that are like under time constraints, because you do want to have like a beginning and an end to any project, you always need to just kind of like be able to follow up, make sure that people are just kind of like okay and have no blockers and stuff. Um, I touched about this previously, but with mentorship, we do also connect people with like again like the industry experts that I was talking about, subject matter experts. And whenever like our community needs advice on like freelancing as narrative design, for example, that's something that a lot of people talk about. Like, do you charge by the word? Do you charge by the project? So we have people that do have experience on these things and can answer it and respond to questions whenever needed. And again, we also enable kind of like meeting other mentors like in real life, while abiding to like, all of the um, just guidelines that people have regarding COVID and stuff. By just kind of like, hey, I noticed that there's like, this conference happening in San Francisco. Hey, there's this event happening in New York. And because we know sort of like, where people are as well, just kind of like everybody has like their username and then the time zone or their location, then we're able to like be able to like not only provide like the accessible remote events that are already like pretty useful, but then also we encourage people to just connect with their local communities and just grow that hub, because we can't all just keep going to LA for every single job, right? And yeah, and also like this is just kind of like to like again really just big shout out to like the entire team. We've worked on like different stories before, such as like I mentioned, like where I've worked. We've also had people working for Starfield, Bitter Silver, Destiny, Toontown, Call of Dragons, Simpsons, and like a bunch of things that are under like NDA. So yeah, we basically just kind of like have all of these storytellers from different mediums waiting to just kind of like get started on a project, and we're just here to kind of like enable that pretty much. And yeah, going back to just kind of like introductions too. I personally know a lot of people with like consultancies that rely on like business development, that rely on like what is it? Um, just being able to connect folks with like publishers and stuff, like they know how to get to like those stakeholders. And if I am aware that sort of like a member of the team wants to really bring like their own project to like the next level, then I'm able to facilitate that. We've also just kind of like assisted them with like portfolio reviews, like hey, I just finished this like project, how should I put it in my portfolio, or hey, I just updated my resume. And we also have had workshops where like we basically just kind of like have a LinkedIn 101, give each other recommendations. And I've also been able to assist organizations that are looking for game talent or like talent in games. Because something that I feel like we have to talk about more in our industry is that we have, everybody's familiar with this, we have a lot of people that are trying to break in. And so oftentimes to break in, you need to have somebody like inside of a studio or somebody that can vouch for you. And being able to network with these people that tend to be, again, like in places that are not as accessible as like LA, San Francisco, or sometimes New York. Like these are places that have a high cost of living and stuff. So then how do you break in? And this ties back to my point where basically by being able to collaborate with these developers, by being able to like, just make games together, I know their strengths. And I know sort of like, okay, so like this person is amazing at like, fleshing out lore. Let me recommend them to a company that's in need of somebody like that. Or this person is like very talented when it comes to project management. Well, I know like this studio that's like really looking for a producer or somebody with like project management knowledge. So again, it's one of those that by having our community just kind of like actively be collaborating with one another, we already know just kind of like how to refer, how to vet for people by having just worked with them at that capacity. And yeah, honestly, like our stories are like a little bit short, but most of us met thanks to the narrative department. Not all of us, but it is a course hosted by Susan O'Connor about narrative design and game writing. Now, the course narrative design courses are amazing at like teaching people like the foundations, sort of like what how do you come up with a plot, dialogue, characters, like very basic things where it's almost like creative writing, but in the context that this is a story that's going to be interacted with, and how you can really take advantage of the medium of games, and how to just be able to like again navigate that. Um, that doesn't really teach you how to be able to like showcase your technical skills, which narrative design does have a need for. And that's kind of like why when we were just kind of like really like honestly we just wanted to like work on a game jam, and I just asked people in the class like, hey, who wants to do a game jam? And 20 people said yes. And me being crazy, I agree, like sure, why not? And so we made our first projects and a secret where I made it a goal to like have people be able to show what they learned from the class, and skills that they had learned from like past companies, because a lot of them were trying to like pivot from one industry to the other. So how can we show our talents in a portfolio in a way that's very easy to like just explain to a recruiter? Because also it's not just people breaking in, it's developers that are currently under NDAs and they cannot talk about their technical skills or like what they know because it might be a proprietary tool. Again, like each NDA is like different from one another. So these are projects that are basically meant to assist people to be able to just talk about their skills freely. And once we have since like released like the second patch for Santa Secret, and we've also worked on our second project, the Ouroboros Express. This one was more ambitious. I think our team doubled around this time, and we juggle like just doing GDC somehow in the midst. But it was just kind of like a challenge of like like how do we scale like from like this core team to just like a bigger one. And we have like our creative director Nash to thank for the being able to just like streamline again production processes that are from other companies. But even if the companies are not necessarily in games, it's project management, and at the end of the day it's how we were able to like have these projects of a large scale just be able to like see the finish line. These two were done entirely in RenPy. And I'll talk a little bit more on just kind of like tools that are narrative design specific. But we do have a lot of people with a background in narrative in addition to like, the different like disciplines that we have. And we created a visual novel um, using that tool, which is completely free. And it's using Python. There's a lot of like tutorials that I believe are like 10 minutes maybe. Like it's very short. And then through these tutorials, we were able to like, have editors be able to like get into the game engine and then like immediately make changes as we were testing, which is probably like one of the most unique QA processes that I have seen, where we would have somebody sharing like their screen and just kind of like the game as they were navigating it, and immediately somebody else had like the build open, so that if we noticed like that was like a grammar inconsistency, narrative dissonance, we were able to just go into the game engine as we were testing, and then address that right away. So I really recommend people to just kind of like take advantage, because there's so many free tools for us to just make games, and really for anybody who wants to like tell a story, to know how to get into a game engine so you can implement it, and that your story's intent carries from paper to the end product in the game engine, sorry. And yeah, this is what I meant by scaling up. We had like over 50K words, I believe, in the Ouroboros Express. And again, like even though it seems like a lot, and it was done like in the course of a couple of months, we also have to remember like a lot of game scripts really like they are in like half a million words easily. Like I know 80 days, anything from Type Moon, these tend to be very wordy like games. However, as designers, it was a very interesting challenge to be able to like how do we tell a story that's interactive, where like we could also just make a novel with that many words. But we really like just kind of like the different permutations that were available in the genre of just kind of like the dating sim that is Ouroboros Express with a Lovecraftian horror twist to it. So you can definitely check it out in itch.io. All of our games are there. Um, and again, like that was a big project to undertake, but a couple of things really helped. And I always encourage any developers that are starting out to just kind of like have these three things in mind. Number one is our pipelines, where like we would ask developers, especially for like our upcoming third project, what is your availability? Do you want to put in 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week? It may sound like it's a little bit, but oftentimes these are people that like already have like a 9 to 5 job, because that's kind of like how you have to work in the as you're kind of like in between jobs from like in the gaming industry, of like just having stable 9 to 5 and then being able to dedicate to just kind of like your personal projects and portfolios, on like the on moonlighting terms basically. And by just knowing the availability of people like from the get-go, we're able to cater pipelines so that we can just kind of like have it be a marathon and not a sprint. So that's very key to remember whenever just working on like any project really. And it's also very multidisciplinary, where like even though I've spoken about like narrative, like we have people that have decades of experience in QA, decades of experience in marketing. These are all, or even programming as well, where again, it's a strength, not like a weakness, that people are able to like do several things and like multi-class, like as I say. Um, and also really like when I was in the network jam a couple of years ago, like it was encouraged and instilled to me like, you should always be trying to like just try new things. There's a lot of people that actually like narrative design implementation more than they like game writing. Some people discover later on that production might have been more of a call for them than narrative design or narrative production even. Again, like we always encourage people to just explore and grow within small owned studio rather than like constraining them into specializations. Basically. We also like don't have NDAs or non-competes. Like we encourage people to just always be on the constant collaboration with other projects. And again, like if our goal is for people to like have a concrete experience that they can show in a portfolio, then that's sort of like how we are navigating it, by just like not restricting what they can talk about, so they can just be able to carry themselves in like interviews, especially second rounds that require more like, of a panel and more technical questions, to just be able to express like what it is that they know. Um, and regarding objectives, really, because it's like, we've done all of these things, but what's next, right? We are really just like empowering people through three principles, which is community, collaboration, and continuous learning. So that's why we have the workshops to, just kind of like foster that pillar of continuous learning. We have resources for people, playlists. We've been able to like stream them like on our Discord channels. Again, like it's all about just kind of like helping the community grow together, rather than like just kind of like competing like on our own by just like, sending job application after job application. um yeah, it's just a little bit of like a reaffirmation. But yeah, that's was a bit of a mouthful I guess. But I'm happy to like answer any and all questions from the chat. um and I hope that was able to just kind of like explain what this quirky like it's accelerator that we call Small Loan Studio is.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming by to talk to us. This is actually such a perfect way to follow up our last panel, which is about starting your own micro studio.
Hmm.
Folks, if you're looking for an example, Small Loan Studios is right here. Um, we had a question from our Discord, that being, where do developers begin when reaching out? Oh, let me double check. Yes. Where do developers begin when reaching out to an accelerator? And what do these programs want to get out of working with these studios or individuals who need that help navigating the industry?
No, that's a great question. So basically it's cool to reach out to get an accelerator, and then what was the second part? Just so that I'm on the same page.
Yeah, the second part is, what do they also kind of get out of hiring people, hiring folks? What, like the equivalent exchange almost.
Right. Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's just like it's going to sound like very um simple and almost comical, but like people really just want to make games. For example, like I've spoken with like representatives for like different accelerators, and they all sort of like agree that they want to be able to like hire developers that sort of like make the game, and then like for accelerators that are like more of a for-profit model, they will basically be want you to like be able to like make an IP for them and a product that they can then sort of like be able to like monetize through wish lists, through sales. Again, like every game is different and there's so many different models for it, right? In Small Studio particularly, again, like it's very much community centric and more of like just kind of like making the game so that like again like the goal is really for people to have something on their portfolio, and that to me is just kind of like the greatest joy that there is in and of itself, and like being able to like help people land like their dream job, which it's been an honor being able to like help people find jobs from small studio to like other studios and organizations amidst this like industry, right? But I know that, for example, there's different ways that different accelerators navigate it. For example, some accelerators have more of a crowdfunding model, which means that they will bring on board the developer, they will help you set up like a Kickstarter with different tiers, and they will have a platform that you have to use. But other than that, like it's more of like your investor is your community, and like you're having that constant stream of like income. Again, in under quotation marks, because like you really need to just be insanely good at like sales and marketing for like that model to like be sustainable. And another business model is just kind of like just cash upfront, like covering the cost of production, and then also supporting. What the accelerator gets out of it is really just kind of like another portfolio to expand upon, like another source of income. That's kind of like the cold truth of the business. But then what is it? The last one that I know of is that accelerators sometimes fund the marketing budget,
Mm.
but not the development. So they will help you get a booth in like, PAX West, PAX East, MagFest. Like they will get you booths in like these like highly concentrated like traffic heavy conventions for, players to like basically be around with and be exposed to the game. But sometimes like the contracts may include like a little bit of funding, but then most of it goes to marketing, or sometimes it's purely marketing. But again, like I really encourage people to just like if you're looking for accelerators like at Sola, really do your research. They have sales representatives that are super open to like talking, and also publishers also have scouts, I believe. So that's another point of reference for you to just kind of go. Really with Small Studio, we just kind of like help people like grow their stories ideas from like a pitch to just kind of like a full-fledged game. And so we accelerate the development of it in that regard, just because we have so many members that we're able to like get those projects from like concept to like the finish line, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And have like marketing is often and advertising is often such a
Mhm.
big part of game dev that you don't really have the resources for if you're a smaller studio. So being able to help out with that is awesome. We have a question from Megna, and that is, what is your favorite part of running an accelerator? It's a unique company within the industry. So what do you like about running it? And I have a follow-up to that afterwards.
Oh yeah, no. It is so fun. We're always like, I'm always like just learning new things. Like we're now using Godot for like our upcoming project. And I'm just always like in awe of the expertise of everybody around me. And it's one of those where like oftentimes like people think like that once you have industry experience, like, that's it. But no, like I get so starstruck by the people that I work with that I'm always looking forward to like helping them out in any way I can. Um, and I'm not sure like I mean I know that like having gone to like college and stuff, like trying to like always struggle to like get projects to like a phase where they're complete. There's no such thing as a project that's complete, but like when it is, and like when you're just everybody's together in the Discord call as somebody's like, pressing, just like publishing the game into itch.io or Steam or whatever, it is such a rewarding feeling knowing that the that chapter of development has ended and then kind of like the patching one begins. But it is very rewarding to be able to like see a game to completion, especially when you've been like, in games with like long development cycles where like you're just like, when is this ever gonna end? Like being able to like be there and cheer for like just kind of like everybody that you work with, like we did the thing, like we finished the game. That is really, really rewarding and something that I don't take for granted.
Definitely. My my kind of other question related to that is what are some troubles or difficulties that you found that you can talk about that were either unexpected or kind of difficult to work around?
Um, and is there like a specific angle that you're looking and answering, or just in general?
Just in general, like any maybe regarding the legal side of getting it fully registered, because I know that that is often it can be difficult to kind of get things like an LLC or a studio set up if you're operating out of like multiple states or multiple countries, just because of the legal
Right.
aspect.
No, yeah, definitely. So I would say that for that, there's a lot of like pro bono resources, to just be able to like check that you're in the clear and everything. Because I do have a background where like I have family, with like lawyers like in different countries. So like I'm able to just kind of like reach out to them and acknowledge that it's not like something that happens to a lot of people. But if you go, for example, like if you look up the state that you're in and then pro bono law, do be on the lookout on like, because both in the game industry and with law, you always need to know what your questions are going to be and who can answer that question. If, for example, like your questions are more about like how do I trademark or have copyright, then like, you have to go to a lawyer that specializes in that. But then if you want to get like the business side of things like up and running, then like that's sort of like something where like you would go for like a more corporate lawyer to be able to like help you set it up. I am not a lawyer, obviously, but pro bono services are like mandatory. I feel like that's something that a lot of people know. Like to keep their licenses, lawyers have to give pro bono services, which again like
Mhm.
are either at a reduced fee or free, because the American law system is set up so that everybody's entitled to representation, regardless of like your income. Eventually like anything adds up, but if that's something that like like you're interested in like pursuing, then there's also like a lot of Discord servers that have kind of like channels dedicated to like business development and law, and you can just kind of like write down a question, and just also like really calling like local law offices, but again, all of the type of law that you need help with.
Awesome. That is, yeah, because that's that's good to know. And like you mentioned, pro bono lawyers, they need these jobs too.
Hmm.
So they'll probably be glad to help you out. Let's see. What is when it comes to being able to negotiate contracts or and not having an NDA, how is managing that? Because I know NDAs are a pretty big thing in this industry. You'll even get them during interviews. So how do you go like how is working without having an NDA versus working while having that NDA?
I feel like NDAs have had such a lasting impact where like some people are still like scared to even talk about things that I've said that it's okay to talk about, right? So in that regard, it's one of those where like what do I say, basically like with contracts, a lot of people just kind of like um have different ways of approaching it. I know that in like other like volunteer studios, like there's rev share, there's profits, or like some people even like have clauses in their companies that like you have to work X amount of hours to like be able to like get a credit and stuff. Um, for small owned studios, really we don't do that. We just kind of like trust our developers, which sounds crazy, but really it's one of those where like the joy that I find is kind of like seeing people just talk about their contributions is just kind of like unmatched when it comes to that. So I wouldn't want to like take away that joy of like I was like a developer in this game and it's on my portfolio on the front page. Like that's just something that I never really agreed with, and it's how we navigate it again, like just pretty much on trust.
Definitely. And especially right now with the industry where a lot of projects are getting canceled, so you can't even ever really talk about whether you've worked on it or not. Having that clause is really is just it's awesome. Um, I I'm not seeing many more questions in our Discord or in our chat, so I guess as a final question I'd like to ask, we asked this earlier, what was the last game that you saw and you kind of dropped everything, bought it, and started playing it?
Camaro, Frog Refuge. It is an indie game where you basically get to like have these refuges where like you can protect frogs and you like make furniture for them, you organize them. And it also has this message where like every single like refuge that you open up in the game is sustainable, where like you use solar power in like some machines, or like you use like you have like you can keep track there. It's like a lot of resource management, and you can also keep track and make sure that you have like your carbon emissions at zero to unlock achievements. So I really like that, even though like it's a cozy game. I just think that it has cute frogs and I bought it, but then the message like as I'm playing it is like having to be very granular about like how I manage my resources. Like, do I have like the biodiversity like percentage at an all-time high? Are my carbon emissions at zero? And it really just brings this very nice environment friendly message to the player that I really encourage people to just take a look at.
So thank you so much, Andrea, for coming and speaking with us. Small Lone Studios looks fantastic. Would you mind if we put a link to the LinkedIn of Small Lone Studios in our chat?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming by and speaking with us.
Thank
We'll
you
be
so
back with
much.
the summit for the narrative panel with a very familiar guest in
Yeah,
about half an hour. See
sounds
you all
good.
later.
Looking forward. Bye bye.